How should one commemorate Chof Beis Shevat?
Let's start by understanding what the significance of the day of Chof Beis Shevat. Because many people misunderstand and think that it's perhaps a Yom Tov for the women, it's the time of the Kinus HaShluchos, perhaps it's a Yartzeit, an important thing, but many people don't recognize the importance and the great significance of this important day. It's true, the day definitely is more significant and more connected to the Sheyuvneis Chabad, to Jewish women and Chabad women, but in truth it has an important significance to every single Chassid and in fact to every single Jew. Let's start by describing a specific sikha that the Rebbe spoke on Chof Beis Shevat, Tafshin Bais, 1992. At that time, I remember I was a bacher here in Crown Heights by the Rebbe. And so, as bachrim, we noticed, and everybody noticed, specifically in the month of Shvat that year, there was a great, if we can call it, decline physically in the Rebbe's health. Specifically, what we could see is with regards to the Rebbe suffered all the time very much from his feet, but one was able to see it to the physical eye. We can see many things that showed on the great pain the Rebbe was going through at that time. To the extent on Yud Shvat, when the Rebbe came into the room, the Rebbe was walking extremely bent over from this great suffering and pain. It came the day of Chof Beis Shevat. Chof Beis Shevat, the Rebbe went to the oil, and the Rebbe was standing on his feet the entire day in the oil. The Rebbe davened the 3 tefillas by the Amud, standing by the Amud, davening all 3 tefillas. And after all that, the Rebbe gave out a Kuntres. It's called Chof Beis Shevat, with sichas about the importance of Jewish women, and specifically the importance of Jewish women throughout history and the importance of Jewish women in bringing Moshiach. But the Kuntres, the Rebbe gave out to every single person, men, women, and children, was a pink Kuntres with a $5 bill inside it. 5 is Chamesh, that's the Rosh Tevis of the Rebbetzins name, and a piece of lekach. The Rebbe stood for hours giving out the Kuntres, to the extent that people were worried as to the Rebbe's health. The Rebbe stood the whole day by the oil, stood the whole day by the tefillas, and now continued to stand. It's fasting all day, and now continued to stand for many hours, and knowing how the situation with the Rebbe's health, people were worried about it. And I remember this clearly when the Rebbe walked out after hours of giving out the Kuntres. The Rebbe walked out so quickly. The Rebbe's walk was with such a useful vigor, if we can call it that there was a gartel that the Rebbe was wearing. I think it wasn't the gartel on the kapata, but another gartel that was under the Rebbe's kapata, that the gartel fell off from the swiftness of the walking. And the Rebbe bent down to pick it up. We were able to see clearly the fact that the Rebbe's health is not something that depends on physical things, but on the contrary, giving and connecting to Chassidim, giving to others, is something that actually strengthens and gives the Rebbe a strengthening in the Rebbe's health. That night there was also a sikha. And again, in that sikha, and this is as the recollection of us standing there as Bachrim, we noticed that the sikha of the Rebbe was so strong, the Rebbe's voice was so strong, something which was very uncommon, not just those days, but in those years in general. The Rebbe's voice was so strong, it sounded like a sikha that had been said in earlier years. In the sikha, the Rebbe began by explaining that we know that every Yerida is Seirech Aliyah. When there's a descent, the purpose of the descent is in order to bring a greater ascent. And the Rebbe said there is no greater Yerida than the Istalkus HaNeshama Min HaGuf, than a Jewish soul leaving the body, because the place where the Jewish soul belongs is inside the body in this physical world. And for a Jewish soul to go and leave the body, that's the greatest possible descent. And so the Rebbe said, such a Histalkus, the Neshama leaving the body, such as happened 4 years ago, was at that time 4 years earlier. In order that it should be Tzeirech Aliyah, that it should be for the purpose of an ascent, the only Aliyah, the only ascent that it could be for, is in order to bring the coming of Moshiach. Such a great Yerida is only for that great Aliyah. And here is the fact of how the Rebbe said clearly, and we'll go on to explain how the Rebbe explained it in the Sikha, that the entire idea of Chof Beis Shevat, of the Rebbetzins Neshama leaving the body, was in order to go up there and bring the coming of Moshiach. And it's an interesting idea that we know that Mashiach's coming is dependent on Nashim Tzidkaniyos, Shebedoir, the righteous women of the generation, and in this case, the greatest righteous woman in the generation, the one who her entire existence is the connection to Ishtoi Kegufoi, the wife of the Nasi Adar, the daughter of the Nasi of the previous Dar, and it was her neshama that had to go up for one reason, in order to bring the coming of Mashiach. An interesting story which connects this idea that I just heard from the person himself that it happened with. Reb Meir Shlomo Yunik used to very often help the Rebbetzin and help around in the Rebbe's house, the Rebbetzin, and on Shabbos in the library, etc. It was in Tafshin Mem Zayin, 1987, when there was the court case for the Sfarim, and the Rebbe was extremely disturbed by what was happening then. And so he was a young bacher, Meir Shloima, and he says to the Rebbetzin, Mashiach should come already, and we'll be pater from all the tzaras. Mashiach should come already, and we won't have any more all the issues and all the tzaras, all the hardship that we deal with. So the Rebbetzin said back to him, Mashiach is already here amongst us. We only need to be able to recognize him, that he should be revealed. And so he said back to the Rebbetzin, Mashiach is in your house. Why don't you tell him that he should be revealed? To which she answered back to him, you tell him. So he said, I'll tell him, I'm a young boy. What will it mean that I tell him? She said, no, you tell him that they're your folk, and if you tell him, he'll listen to you. Now, of course, he didn't have the guts or the chutzpah to go over to the Rebbe and say this to the Rebbe. But after Chof Beis Shevat, after the passing of the Rebbetzin, so his friends were pushing him. The Rebbetzin told you to tell the Rebbe, you have to go over to the Rebbe. So it was Simchas Torah, either Shmini Atzeres night or Simchas Torah night after Akafis. And he went over to the Rebbe and he said to the Rebbe, I have a story about the Rebbetzin and Mashiach. And the Rebbe bent his head to hear, and he totally blanked out. He couldn't remember anything. So he said to the Rebbe, Yitzter kenech rishreiden, I can't speak. And so the Rebbe said, Besser sag l'chaim und sing afrei l'chenigin, better say l'chaim and sing afrei l'chenigin. But the truth is, this concept, this is the life of the Rebbetzin. It was the Rebbetzin that was the one, as everyone knows, who pushed the Rebbe to actually be mekabel the Nesiyas, so to speak, push the Rebbe to accept the Nesiyas. which to mention was obviously a big Mesiras Nefesh for her. She knew what a Rebbe is. She grew up in the house of a Rebbe, and she knew that she's giving up everything by pushing the Rebbe to be the Rebbe, and yet she did it for everybody. She said to the Rebbe, what will happen with all the years of Mesiras Nefesh of my father, that it will all go to waste if there's no continuation? And the Rebbe accepted. It was the Rebbetzin who told us by the Sfarim court case that she brought to the victory of the Sfarim court case with a statement that the Rebbe later repeated after Chof Beis Shevat in the week of the Shiva. As wie die Nifteres hat gesagt, that the Rebbetzin said that the Tate, they asked the Rebbetzin in the lawyers in a videoed testimony, who did the Sfarim belong to? Your father or the Chassidim? That was the crux, that was the point of the whole issue of the court case. And the Rebbetzin answered, the Tate und die Sfarim gehören zu Chassidim. My father and the Sfarim belong to Chassidim. That statement that the Rebbe and the Sfarim belong to Chassidim is a statement that gives us the strength and the power, especially in our time now, to actually do what we have to do and bring Moshiach. It was the Rebbetzin that gave that power of giving the Rebbe to the Chassidim, and it was the Rebbetzin who gave us the power of understanding what it means that as a Chassid is one thing with the Rebbe. To the extent that, so to speak, the Rebbe belongs to a Chassid, and all the power that entails for the Chassid to be able to do his mission, to be able to do what he has to do. And it was the Rebbetzin who went up and gave her life in order to storm the heavens, in order to bring Moshiach. In the Sikha, the Rebbe continued to say an amazingly powerful thing. We'll say it in short. The Rebbe said that there's 3 tkufas, there's 3 eras. The Rebbe spoke about the 3 tkufas in the life of the Frierdiker Rebbe, of the previous Rebbe. There was the 30 years of his Nesias, of his leadership. The first 10 or a little bit more years, which was in Russia. The next decade, or around the decade, that was in Poland. And the 3rd decade in America. And the Rebbe spoke about these 3 eras as the time that there was the first preparation of the fight against communism. The second was preparing by bringing Chassidus even into Poland. And the third was in order to prepare the world for the coming of Moshiach in the Chatzi Kadar HaTachton, in the bottom half of the world. The Rebbe then spoke about another 3 tkufas. And in the Rebbe's words, connected to the previous Rebbe. There was the era of the previous Rebbe's leadership in this world, from Taf Reish Pei until Taf Shin Yud, the 30 years of his leadership in order to prepare the world for the coming of Mashiach. There was the second era, from the 11th of Shvat, Taf Shin Yud Aleph, 5711, which in the Rebbe's words is the continuation of his leadership after his histalkos, after his passing physically, the continuation of the leadership in this world in order to actually bring Mashiach into this world. And the third era, the Rebbe said, from Chof Beis Shevat Tamshin Mem Ches, from the 22nd of Shvat, 5748, when there was the histalkos, the passing of the daughter of the Frierdiker Rebbe, the passing of the Rebbetzin, which that's the third era connected to the coming of Mashiach, in which bringing Mashiach practically into this world in the most practical manner. Which means that as Chassidim, when we look at Chof Beis Shevat, and we look at it how the Rebbe taught it to us, it's not just a date and not only a Yartzeit, as great as a Yartzeit is. It's a day when the Rebbetzin went up in order to bring Moshiach practically into this world, and when there was a new stage in the revelation of Moshiach in the world that began as a result of that. And like the Rebbe explains, that the whole concept of Basi Legani, the mimer that the Frierdiker Rebbe said or gave out as the last mimer in his life, in his generation, and the first mimer of the Rebbe, started with the words Basi Legani Achoisi Kala, where the Jewish people are referred to as my sister, my bride in the feminine term. The mimer was said in connection to a Yartzeit of a Rebbetzin, of the grandmother of the Frierdiker Rebbe, Rebbetzin Rivka, which was on Yud Shvat. The continuation to the mimer, which is the 13th of Shvat, the second part of the mimer, was connected also to the Yartzeit of a Rebbetzin, of Rebbetzin Shtarnesara, the mother of the Frierdiker Rebbe. And the Rebbe explains that what is the point, what's the idea of that? Because the actual bringing down the Ikar Shechina into the physical world is something which is in the power specifically of a woman. B'schus nashim tzidkaniyos shebeder, the righteous women of the generation. What's the power of women to actually bring something down into the physical world? As the Gemara says, that when a man works all day, he plants and grows and harvests wheat, produce, he brings home the raw material, and it's the wife that takes it and turns it into something edible, makes flour and bakes bread. And as the Gemara's words, a person brings wheat home, but he can't eat wheat. The concept that Chassidus explains and that the Gemara explains about what's the avodah of Jewish women is to bring into the practical world, to reveal things in a practical manner. And therefore the Rebbe says that in truth, when we say Basi Legani Achoisi Kala, the entire Jewish people, we're all being referred to in the feminine, because it's our job to do that job as the woman's job, which is to bring down the Shechina practically into this world. And as the Rebbe tells us that this happened in the most practical way, Chof Beis Shevat, it's twice 11. The idea of the number 11, Yud Aleph, is something which is the highest level of godliness that's above the world. Being able to reveal it into the physical world, because 10 is the completion of a number. The one which is above 10 then becomes together with the number 10 in a manner that the 11 becomes one single number in which godliness becomes one with the physical world. And Chof Beis 22, the 22nd day of Shvat, which is the 11th month, is 11 times 2 is twice 11. And as the Rebbe explains it at length in the Sikha, which we won't go into now at length, but the general concept is the fact that there's twice that the Aseres HaDibros were said. The second time was said by Moshe Rabbeinu in Mishnah Torah in a manner that godliness, the Anoichi, the oneness of Hashem, which that's also number 11, because Anoichi is the one which is above the Aseres HaDibros. It's the oneness that's above all the 10 Dibros, but becomes united and unified with the 10. That's connected by Matan Torah. It says, Achad Asar Yom Chayrev, 11 days from Chayrev. It's 11, the number 11. But the concept of this number 11 times 2, that's like the second, that's like the 2 Aseres HaDibros. And specifically the second time that the Aseres HaDibros is said in the Torah, in a way that it's being said by a human being, but where the Shechina is speaking from his mouth. And that's number 22, 11 times 2, meaning bringing 11 in the most powerful way in the 11th month, But 11 times 2 is bringing 11 in the most powerful way into the world to reveal godliness into the world. So in a practical meaning, when we come to the day of Chof Beis Shevat, we have to realize that it is the most powerful day, because it's a day when, as a Chassid, it's a day when every Jew realizes that this is the day that gives us the power to live Moshiach in our world, to prepare ourselves, as the story we mentioned earlier, to prepare ourselves to realize Moshiach is amongst us, to prepare ourselves to open our eyes and to be able to see Moshiach, to be able to actually greet Moshiach, to live Moshiach in our lives of 10, in our lives in this world, to bring that oneness, the Yechidah, the essence of our neshama, which is the spark of Moshiach, to reveal it and bring it out. And it's this special day, with this special power, that the Nashim Tzidkaniyas, the Jewish righteous women of the generation, and specifically the Isha Tzidkanis of our generation, as the Rebbe said, when after the Stalkos, after the passing of the Rebbetzin, during the Shiva, one of the Rabbanim who came to visit the Rebbe, and he said to the Rebbe, I heard that she was an amazing woman. And the Rebbe said, her true worth only Hashem knows. It's an interesting thing, because we know that there's what's called Sichas Chulin Shel Talmidei Chacham, something that seems like it's just an interesting saying. But if you look, this statement was said in the Gemara about Reb Shimon ben Yochai. Reb Shimon ben Yochai's teacher, Reb Meir, Reb Akiva, said about Reb Shimon ben Yochai, Dayecha, it should suffice, Shaniu Boiracha Makirin Kaichacha, that only I and your Creator recognize your true greatness, your true power. These words were the words the Rebbe used about the Rebbetzin. The one who only Hashem can recognize and realize what her true worth and her true greatness, and that we were zoich and merited to get a little bit of a glimpse through the fact of the Rebbe teaching us of what it means, this special day when her neshama is elevated even more, but elevated even more for the one single purpose of bringing Mashiach into our lives. And therefore it's a day which we prepare for, and which in the day itself we have that power to be able to strengthen ourselves in living with Mashiach, in recognizing that the Rebbe belongs to Chassidim, in recognizing that we have that power of being able to bring Mashiach and reveal Mashiach in every aspect of our life, and most importantly, to actually be Mekabel Pnei Mashiach Tzidkenu, to greet Mashiach immediately, so that by the time we get to Chof Beis Shevat, we'll be together with the Rebbetzin, together with all the Nashim Tzidkaniyas. We'll see all the tzaddikim of all the generations in a revealed way. We'll have the revelation of Melech HaMashiach, who will take us out of Galus and bring Hashem Echad U'Shmai Echad, the oneness of Hashem in the world. The one which is above the world, in the world, will be revealed in a physical manner in our physical world. To sum it up in a very practical manner, I'm not aware of specific minhagim besides for obviously the regular Yartzeit minhagim, whether it's learning Mishnayos, whether those who light a candle. But other than that, when it comes to Chof Beis Shevat, when we talk about a practical manner of how we prepare for it and how we bring it into our lives. In the Sikha, the Rebbe said an interesting thing. The Rebbe explained, just to bring this idea a little bit more, the Rebbe explained the name Chaya Mushka. The Rebbe said Mushka is a type of besam, it's a type of spice. And Chaya means live. A spice, according to Chassidus, is something which has to do with the Kuntres, which is actually 11. There's 11 samemanim. There's 11 ingredients in the Kuntres. The Kuntres was the highest avodah in the Beis Hamikdash because it connects not with eating and drinking like the karbanis, which are called, so to speak, eating and drinking, but rather with smell. Smell connects to the essence of the soul. Chaya means to bring it into life. Our mission is to bring the highest idea, the number 11, spices, to bring the idea of Kuntres, of smell, of the essence of our connection to the Eibishter, to bring it into our physical and practical lives. And the Rebbe explained it also by talking about the Gemara that says that there's three things that are marchiv daite sheladim. There's three things that they broaden a person's mind, which is Bais Noah, a beautiful home, Isha Noah, a beautiful wife, and Kalim Noam, beautiful vessels. The Rebbe explained that the concept means bringing down the beauty of the soul, the beauty, the spiritual and physical beauty, but bringing it down in a manner that we bring it into our lives. So on a practical level, it comes a day like Chof Beis Shevat and the days that prepare for Chof Beis Shevat. We have to take our essence of our soul, our connection to the Rebbe, the fact that the Rebbe belongs to a Chassid, our Kuntres, our connection, our essence, our feeling of Moshiach, bring it down into every aspect of our physical lives. Whether it's when we wake up in the morning, the way we wake up in the morning. Whether it's the way we say Moida'ani. Whether it's the way we wash our hands, Nagelwasser, and the way we say the morning brachas. Whether it's the way we eat, whether it's the way we play, whether it's the way we do business, whether it's the way we go shopping. Every physical idea of our lives is permeated with the essence of our soul, which affects it. It affects how we deal with another Jew. It affects the constant realization that I'm connected to Hashem, I'm connected to Mashiach, I'm connected to something which is above the world, and I bring that into my life. I bring that into the way I greet another person. I bring it into the way I do business. I bring it into the way I eat, into the physical aspects of my physical life. I bring it down so that this brings and prepares us to greet and see Mashiach in the physical world, in the physical aspects of everything in the physical world.